Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. It's still morning here in Denver, where I'm joining from. Thank you all for joining us for Generations United's Shared Site Learning Network. I'm Sherry Steinig. I'm the Special Project Director at Generations United and one of the co-conveners of this group. I'm really pleased to see so many new and familiar faces here today to talk about evaluation, which is what an exciting topic and definitely a topic that most people wanted to learn more about. I'm going to just ask everyone to take 1 second to check your name on Zoom to make sure that it's the name that you would want to be called if someone was going to call upon you. If you need to change it, you can just right-click on your name, select rename, and type in the name that you want to be called. We are recording these sessions. I've been sharing the links to these recordings in the emails that come out to everyone. If you're not getting those emails, that means that I don't have you on our network list. So if you just want to type into chat that you'd like to join the list to make sure you receive all those communications as well as alerts about future network meetings and events, drop your email in there or just let us know. We have your email through the registration form for this webinar as well. We'll make sure that we add you to that. It's free to join. There's no obligations being part of the network. We really are just looking at opportunities to share and learn together. And hopefully we don't bombard you too much with information and emails. I wanted to take a second to thank our funder, the Eisner Foundation, who through their support, we were able to create this learning network just a little bit over a year ago. Our inaugural meeting was in May of last year. Really, as I said earlier, just an opportunity to bring people together interested in intergenerational shared sites, to connect, to learn from each other, and to really also elevate a toolkit that we created that Nancy wrote, and with the support of a lot of people on this call, an online toolkit for intergenerational shared sites that was also released last year. I do want to, I'll put into chat just to direct folks to the chapter on, or the section on evaluation, because that is also has a lot of helpful resources about about evaluating your program. We recognize that your time is very valuable. Oh, can everyone just make sure that they're muted? If you could put yourself on mute if you're not muted yet. I can hear some background noise. Great, thank you. I just said we recognize that your time is very valuable. We want this network to be useful to you. So again, contact me or Nancy with any sort of ideas, suggestions on how we can improve. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Nancy Hankin, who's going to facilitate the meeting today.
Okay, am I on? I don't see myself. Can you see me?
I can see you and hear you, Nancy.
Okay, I can't see myself, so that's okay. Well, hi, everybody. It's been a little while since we've been in touch, but I'm always so thrilled to be part of these meetings and to have such an international group of people working on shared sites. So I'm really excited about the learnings we have today. And as usual, one of the most important parts of this is introducing ourselves so we know who's there. Can we see people's faces on the rather than the PowerPoint? Maybe get people's, that's good, that's better. Where is it? Okay, so we'd love, hi everybody. So we'd love to do some introductions of people so people can know where they are and who they can call upon later on if there's some interesting discussions. So I think I'll need to call out a name because I'm not sure if everyone has the same order. So let's start with Terry McKenzie. Can you say, and I'm gonna model it. I'm Nancy Hankin. I'm a senior fellow at Generations United in Washington, DC. That's it, because we have a lot of people on the call and we could spend an hour introducing ourselves. So if you'll just say your name and where you're from and maybe your position. Okay, we're gonna start with Terry.
Hi, everybody. It's my first time here. I'm Terry McKenzie. I'm with Northeast Village Portland in Portland, Oregon, and village manager.
That's perfect. You're a perfect role model. Okay, let's see, Sue. Oh, no, wait a minute. Now I have Lori Marks next. Okay, Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Marks. I'm the Executive Director of Link Generations in the Washington, D.C. area.
Another perfect one. Very good. Sue Eggersdorf. Do we have Sue? Okay, we'll come back to Sue. How about Sandra McGuire? No Sandra McGuire? Okay, okay, Shannon, we're gonna introduce, you can say something now if you want.
Sure. Hi, I'm Shannon Jarrott. I'm a professor of social work at Ohio State University. Good morning.
Okay, Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Griffin. I'm the Creative Aging and Partnerships Officer with Senior Services in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Just opening we'd love to hear about how things are going down there. So congratulations on opening up. Judith in London.
Hello, I'm Judith. I'm a co-founder and director at Apples and Honey Nightingale, which is a community interest company. It's a not-for-profit preschool and daycare co-located in a care home.
Great. And we're going to stay with the UK for a little while. Lorraine.
Hi, I'm Lorraine George. I'm the Learning and Development Officer for Generations Working Together Scotland.
Great. Lois, you can say hello, but I'll introduce you a little more later.
Hi, everyone. Fantastic to be here. I'm Lois Peach. I'm a Ph.D. student and researcher at the University of Bristol.
Great. Lena.
Hello, everyone. I'm a PhD student based at UCL in London. I'm in the office right now. I actually left a party early to be here. We have a party in the department today, so really nice to see everyone. And yes, I'm doing research in a care home co-located with a nursery. I know Judith very, very well, and I would have been there today even for the sessions that we're running, but I had things at university going. So yeah.
Great. Well, we're glad you can join us, Lena. Terry.
Hi, my name is Terry Kelber, and I'm the director of the Institute of Empowered Aging at United Neighborhood Houses in New York City.
Great, good to see you, Terry. Jody.
Hi, I'm Jody Schumann, and I'm the Director of Childcare on the Ebenezer Ridges Shared Site Campus in Burnsville, Minnesota.
We have people all over the country and all over the world. This is so exciting. Diane.
Good morning, everyone. I am Deanne Drouet, and I am a co-founder of iGen Ottawa in Ottawa, Canada. I'm currently in beautiful British Columbia, and I'm also a master's student at Royal Roads University with a thesis, a subject of intergenerational shared spaces.
Great. Well, we're anxious to hear what you're finding. Matt. Hello, Matt.
Oh, hello. I'm Matt Kaplan. I'm in the social science department of the College of Ag Sciences at Penn State University, professor of intergenerational programs and aging. It's great to be here. I look forward to learning from Shannon today.
Okay, how about Jennifer?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Horn, and I work at the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging in the Family Caregiver Support Center as a care planner in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Nika?
Hi, I'm Nika Barnes from Andrew Fleck Children's Services in Ottawa, Canada. I'm the Director of Special Projects.
Great, a lot of Canadian friends here today. Eunice.
Hi, everyone. I am a student at Algonquin College. I am taking my internship at EduFlex Children's Services under Nika Burns' supervision.
Great. Well, welcome. Thanks. Cheryl.
Hi, I am also a student, a fellow student of Eunice, and Nika is also my supervisor. So I'm doing my summer internship in the Intergenerational project in Ottawa, Canada.
We love having students here because you're our future. So we're so glad that so many of you are able to join us today. Okay, Carolina. Buenos días.
Buenas tardes.
Oh,
Aquí.
buenas tardes. Well, it's buenas tardes, right?
Hi, everyone. I'm Carolina, and I am a member of the Microsoft Chair in Intergenerational Studies at the University of Granada in Spain.
Great. So we have our Spanish contingent here. Allison from Scotland.
And it's Bella here. So I've
Bella,
used
Allison's.
yes, sorry. I used Alison's link because I couldn't find mine in my emails.
Okay, Bella, we welcome you.
Hi, so Bella here from Generations Working Together. I'm an Intergenerational Development Officer. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, Sandra. Your mic isn't on.
I am a retired professor emeritus, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I used to chair the gerontology program. I'm presently living in Louisville, Kentucky, and working with Age Friendly Louisville. We don't have any shared site things going yet, but we're doing a lot of intergenerational activities. And we recently started intergenerational reading through the local libraries using books from the Growing Up and Growing Older book list. So I'm just interested in what you're doing.
Great, thank you for joining us. Hope I'm not missing people. Gary, I think I may have missed you.
Hi, I'm Gary Barbary. I'm from Griffith University in Brisbane. It's 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning here.
I can't believe you're joining us.
Sorry for the bedhead here.
Great, well, I can't believe you're joining us, and thank you, and you're doing wonderful work there. So we're glad you can be with us. Let's see, I think Jenny Hoover.
Hello, I'm Jenny Hoover. I work in Kendall at Oberlin. It's a retirement community with a preschool inside, and we do intergen with the kids. And then we also partner with the local colleges, and we're in Oberlin, Ohio.
Great. Melissa, I haven't called on you yet, have I? I don't think so.
I'm Melissa Smith with Senior Services here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We are getting ready to break ground on our Intergenerational Center for Arts and Wellness. And on Friday, we're hosting our first ever intergenerational art class.
Excellent. Can't wait to hear about it. Take lots of pictures. Let's see, Claudia.
Yes, hi. I'm sorry I'm late.
Okay.
Yes, I
Just
am
your name and where you're from.
I am based in Ottawa, and I'm looking forward to create a shared space here. I'm a social worker, and I'm with Deanne, who presented herself, I guess, earlier. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Molly, we have a big group today.
I am Molly Jones. I work at the Council on Aging of Ottawa, and I am working with the already introduced Nika and Eunice and Cheryl on an intergenerational project with Andrew Fleck Children's Services.
That's great. We have the whole team here, which is wonderful. Okay, Karen Krause. Nope.
Yep, Karen Krause from Madison, Wisconsin, building an intergenerational neighborhood. We currently run an intergenerational group home. So with staff, younger staff, and sometimes their kids living on site caring for frail older folks right now.
Great. Did I call on you, Jennifer?
Yes, you did.
Yes. So is there anyone this has been really moving around. Jose, how about you? I just saw you come up. Oh, and Jay. Okay, we have a few more people. What happened to, I don't know where Jose is, but I see
right
Jay. Oh, okay, Jose. Okay.
Hi there, my name is Jose. I'm from Ottawa, Canada, and I'm also working alongside Andrew Fleck Children's Services on the Intergenerational Childcare Project.
Wow, you have a big team there. Great. Well, we're glad you're here. Jay, haven't seen you in a while.
Jay Bloom from Portland, Oregon, founding board member of an intergenerational program called Bridge Meadows, and very active in age-friendly Portland efforts.
Great. Welcome, Jay. Bonnie, did I ask?
And hi there, my name is Bonnie Schroeder, and I'm the Director of Age Friendly Ottawa with the Council on Aging, and we're supporting Andrew Fleck create intergenerational programming in their daycare, and excited to be a part of this session today.
Okay, now I'm just going to ask, is there anybody I didn't call on because these boxes are moving quickly?
I was going to say Chelsea and Marie were
I
two
don't
of the
even
people
see
that I
them
had
up
seen.
here. I don't even
Yep.
see them up here. Oh, wait, where's Chelsea? Go, Chelsea.
Good morning. I'm Chelsea Mason. I am the Director of External Relations at the Eisner Foundation. Glad to be here. Thank you.
And we all give great thanks to Chelsea for all her support of Generations United. And who else? Marie Hoover, I just see.
Hello, good morning. I'm Marie Hoover, and I'm the director of the Intergenerational Learning Center of Providence Mount St. Vincent in West Seattle. Glad to be here.
Okay. Anybody else who wasn't called upon? No, well, this is great. I don't know how many people are on, Sherry, but it's just a wonderful group of people from all over the world doing really interesting things. So we are very happy that you're with us and hope that this session will be a great learning experience for everyone. As Sherry said, lots of people are have mixed views on evaluation, and sometimes it can be really intimidating. But I think Lois and Shannon today will share some really concrete strategies, and we hope to hear from you too about what works, what doesn't work, and give each other advice and how we can be more intentional about assessing the impact of our programs on both older people and young people. Today we did the introductions. We're gonna listen to both our speakers about how to conduct intergenerational evaluations, talking generally, and then Lois will talk about a specific program that she evaluated. We'll have discussion, lots of feedback, and hopefully have lots of learnings. We want to go to the next slide. Next slide. If you will, in the chat, if you have, a couple words about, like, when you hear the word program evaluation, what do you think? How do you feel about it? We can just put that in the slide for a minute, and then we'll move into our speakers. As I say, people have very different views on evaluation. So let's see if we get anybody saying anything here. Let's see. Any thoughts? Let's see. Outcomes, progress, helping to move forward. Okay. What will it cost? Oh, it's an interesting issue. Right. I think one of the things about sometimes we don't know what we should be looking at, what we should be evaluating. And I think both Shannon and Lois will address that as well, and how important it is to be clear about what outcomes you want to measure. Okay. Okay, this is good. If you want to add as we go along, that's fine. So that we have two great speakers today. The first one is Dr. Shannon Jarrott, who many of you may know because Shannon's been in the field for many years. She's a professor of social work at Ohio State University. She has created lots of monographs and written lots of articles, and she wrote a great toolkit for Generations United on evaluating shared sites. And Shannon's been a friend, a colleague, and it's been wonderful over the years to see how much she has done both at Virginia and Ohio State, and how much she continues to contribute to the intergenerational field. So Shannon's going to give us kind of an overview of evaluation, look at different strategies for assessing outcomes and looking at the impact of your programs. So take it away, Shannon.
Hi, thank you. I love this slide. I'm surprised nobody said they feel like a tiger swimming or teddy bears doing science experiments when it comes to evaluation. Lois, thank you for setting us up with this slide. I can resonate with how you described feeling about evaluation. It is really important, and it is also sometimes intimidating to think about the skills or the instruments or what to choose or how much is it going to cost and how long will it take. And so I'm going to ask you another question as we get ready to get started. And that is, I'd like you to take a minute and think about how you know, or how you think you'll know, that your program is going well. And I'm going to just let you stop and think about that. And then I'll ask for you to type it into the chat box. How do you think you know if your intergenerational program is going well, because there are so many different ways, even without a fancy, expensive formal evaluation. Yeah, you've got a lot of different options there. Keep them coming. That I would list here. People talked about watching. People talked about getting anecdote or story from family members, from older adults or young people themselves. Some of you might rely on artwork or stories or poems, music or dances, plays that your younger and older participants create. Some of you might have surveys. They could take a lot of different shapes. And some of you might be relying on standard assessments. Video diaries, that's terrific, Allison, or Allison's colleague, whose name I've got down here someplace. Yeah, thank you. So there are many different ways of knowing, and you don't have to have a PhD or a course on evaluation to get a feeling that something is working. Like you said, some of you said, people come back. They vote with their feet. They come back and ask for more, which is always a good sign. And so now I'd like for you to ask, and I saw this in a comment earlier, some of you said that you knew evaluation is important, but you're not quite sure what to measure. And so I would ask, why are you offering intergenerational programming? What is the reason that you're offering it? And I'll take that in your chat box as well. Here are some pictures of different programs, some of which I've been involved with, and different goals of intergenerational programs that I know about and what they have tried to achieve. Sometimes this is a hard question to answer. Maybe you inherited an intergenerational program and you got started without a lot of background on why you were bringing these younger and older people together. I see relationships, attitudes about aging getting better. Judith is solving the problems of the world, fractured and divided society. So integration, I'm all for that. And there are some comments that might be indicated a lot of different ways, such as evidence of impact. What kind of evidence and what kind of impact? So I guess the question I'd ask for now is a thumbs up if you think that what you aim to achieve with your intergenerational program aligns with your way of knowing, the way of knowing that you described in the last slide. Does it match up? So if you said you were interested in improving attitudes, are you measuring attitudes? Do you know about the attitudes? I've got, everybody's got, sets up their Zoom calls differently. So I got to scroll through participants and I'm not seeing many thumbs up, but I bet some of you are just slow to push that button. Does your way of knowing align with the goals you aim to achieve with your intergenerational program? Well, that is what I'm going to spend the rest of our time talking about. And I intend to offer opportunities for people who are brand new to evaluation, and people who are trying to ease into this, knowing that this is something they should be doing, knowing this is something they're required by funders or by boards of directors to do, and also for people who have had a little bit to a lot of experience. I know from the registration information that people are coming to us with a full range, full spectrum of experiences. So thank you for participating and sharing that information with us. I've I've got right here a picture of the cover page of the Intergenerational Evaluation Toolkit. I'm going to ask one of our facilitators to paste that link into the chat box so it becomes clickable. This was created with support from the Eisner Foundation. Thank you, Chelsea, and Generations United. Thank you, GU. And you can find this exact screenshot. It's dense, but I'm going to talk you through it. So you can choose to blow up the page on your screen if you want, but I'm going to talk about it in the next couple of slides. We'll zoom in a little bit, so don't worry too much. This is on page 15, just like you've got from the screenshot, and it is intended for people to capture in a low demand, low pressure, open-ended process. Everybody has to document the programming that's taking place at their center. And so this worksheet that I created for people who might be short on time or new to evaluation or low on a budget for evaluation are able to work with it. Because we hold central to intergenerational programs a mutual benefit, there is space on this worksheet to indicate goals and outcomes. I didn't quite mean to do that yet, for youth participants and for your older adult participants. Now, you might be interested also in describing goals that you have for other stakeholders, for example, family members or the larger community. Judith described goals for the larger community. And so there's room to add to that as well. In this next slide, I'm going to show an example of some goals that were set for a program focusing on youth and older adults. And they might have taken their examples from some illustrations down here, but those are just suggestions of some of the developmental or growth goals that you might have for your intergenerational program. So if we zoom in a little bit, let's imagine for our example that this is, and we have some programs like this on the call, an adult day service program that is doing gardening with young children. And so let's think about the goals that the staff who are working at this preschool and the adult day program might have to support the development of their participants, which we know doesn't stop once we reach adulthood. So they decide that gardening can help their younger participants to build some fine motor, some nurturing skills, maybe of the plants, maybe of each other, and that they can practice observing and describing what it is that they see. For these older adults, there's a desire to exercise motor skills that they might be they're going to be experiencing decline with, whether due to age-related change or to disease conditions they're experiencing. Persistence is important as they navigate the changes that they are encountering. And then they're looking to support cooperation. So it's a matter of aligning the evaluation with the program goals. This statement will repeat on several slides. This is really my takeaway message. And so what we find is that in their notes, they can describe how gardening supported their goals, the steps that they took to facilitate success. And so when this group gets together, the preschool teachers and the adult day services, activity leaders, or maybe the CNAs, they can pull this one page out, or maybe it's a couple of pages long, and they can decide based on these notes, do we want to repeat this activity next spring? They might be able to see ways to apply what they learned to fall programming. They might also decide based on their progress notes that this was not the right activity to support their goals, and we don't want to do this again. And that's okay too. There's value in determining that something wasn't effective, just as there is in determining what is effective. Now, they can use these notes to share with their stakeholders to build that buy-in and investment and let people know about the intergenerational work they're doing. So these notes could go into a family newsletter. They might guide somebody who's coming through and taking pictures to document for families what's going on at the center. And they could also use these ideas as a jumping off point for a more structured evaluation next year. For example, if we take a look at the motor skills notes for the older adults, there's a comment made about the older adults mostly using gross motor skills during the gardening activities. And so they might have a staff member who does an assessment of motor skills before and after the gardening among the older adults. And they might be interested in seeing, does the motor skill improve?
Yeah, I got a webinar.
Or
Make sure everybody's muted.
Mute yourself.
There. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hello.
And so you can use this worksheet for a lot of different things. And I am going to move on to the next slide. I'm going to let Sherry and Nancy know that I've closed my chat box. So if there are things that come up, I'll ask you to let me know about that. All right, so let's see, I'm here. Don't worry about this being a busy slide because I'm going to focus in a little bit more on it as well. If you have experience with your intergenerational program, or you know you want something a little more structured, we've also got these pages in the intergenerational toolkit. They're pages 13 and 14. It is also available in a printable format, so you don't have to pull it out of the document as a whole. And I'm going to describe it for you here. It could be used as an evaluation tool in itself, and it could also be used to link with some other outcomes that I didn't create that I'll share with you in a couple of minutes. The link that I have there at the bottom, within the evaluation toolkit, besides this worksheet, there are several pages dedicated to specific practices that are captured in the worksheet and that are grounded in evidence and that detail what do these practices look like and why would you want to use them. This link here is a continuing education course that is available and provides more depth on how these practices developed and how they might be used in the context of building your intergenerational program. So the first page of this tool asks activity leaders to fill this form out for a given activity. And it explains that some of these activity practices occur before, some during, and some after the intergenerational activity. They concentrate on positive interactions, and they recognize the importance that the activity leader has during programming. They probably reflect practices that you already use. For example, making sure that the activity is age appropriate and ability appropriate for the older adults. Making sure that the younger and older participants are invited to provide feedback on how they enjoyed the activity or if they might make changes to it. So this page can serve both as a reminder for an activity leader, for example, if they're reviewing it while they get ready for the activity, and it can be used as an evaluation as well. So for example, if you're training some new activities professionals, a supervisor might go over this worksheet after watching the new professional lead that activity. Here's where I saw you using the best practices. Here's where I saw that it was harder for you to perhaps understand or to use that practice. So it could serve as an evaluation tool on its own, but I'm going to show you how you could link it to something else as well. And that is that second page, 14. It asks the activity leader to describe the predominant social and emotional response of the participant. So it reflects a value that I think we all share for relationships and the recognition that relationships are built on interacting with each other and enjoying that interaction. This form also recognizes that the younger and older participants might not experience the activity exactly the same way. And I don't have an example for this, but I'll just describe that what I would do if I was completing item 13 is I would describe in general, how did the young people respond to this activity? Were they mostly engaged in a solitary manner? Were they watching without engaging what was going on in the intergenerational activity? Or were they primarily interacting with an intergenerational partner? That's most likely to build that relationship. And then down for item 14, we asked to rate the emotion that's expressed. These items were built with input from some of my intergenerational practice and research scholars. It is something we're still getting ready to test the reliability and validity of. There are some limitations to this measure, but we did design it to be quick to complete, knowing that activity leaders are usually long on tasks and short on time. And there is a space at the bottom as well to note if somebody perhaps didn't fit within the average rating for the younger and older persons. So we've got some notes for that. I would like to introduce you to how we could look at these forms together. And then I'm going to bring around some other instruments as well. I know some of you are interested in that. So taking these two pages together, an activity leader could see, do I tend to see higher levels of intergenerational interaction? Do I tend to see more smiley faces on the 4 and 5 range when I use more of these practices or when I use specific practices? So there's a lot of different ways that this form could be used. I had colleagues that I asked to fill it out every time they did an activity for me over more than a year's time. They said, Shannon, we'll go along with you on this, but we think it's overkill. So you might be interested in this form if you're introducing new programming, or like I mentioned earlier, if you have a new activity leader. If it looks like interest is starting to trail off, you might come in and see, is it because people have diminished their use of these practices? Or maybe your participants have just kind of run the course on the interest in the content of that programming. Now, my goal in offering this scale is to give people something useful and reflective on their practice and how it connects to the ways people engage and how they feel about the ways that they engage, but it can be connected to some other measures as well. And that's where I'm gonna shift now and start to wrap up my portion of the presentation. And I'm trying to click, there we go, on this button. So this is another page that is in the evaluation toolkit, and it is a table of contents in effect of a range of instruments that I spent a while going through the intergenerational literature to see what are the outcomes, the goals of programming that people have been measuring and linking to participation in intergenerational programs. All of the instruments that are listed here have been used in intergenerational research. They've demonstrated reliability and validity, and they report it in the citation. And I've been able to find sufficient directions and copies of the instrument that people can use them. And I have one example that I'll show for you. You can see that we're pretty short on measures to use with young children. They are sometimes not very reliable sources of self-report, and that's probably why. Our list is longer for young people. We've got examples of things people have talked about in the chat: attitudes about aging, feelings of self-esteem, knowledge about aging. And our list for older adults is pretty lengthy. It will depend on, for some of these measures, the capabilities that the older adult participants have as to whether or not those measures would be appropriate. We're really short on measures for other stakeholders, so I hope people in this audience can help to contribute to this list. Here's one example that I'll share with you just to give you a sense of what you'll find in the handbook. So a lot of the time we talk about a developmental task for older age being generativity. And so here is a page that describes the information about a generativity scale. And in it, you'll see, I don't expect you to read it, but the headings I described are here. So it talks about who the responding population would be, how long the survey is, why you might administer it, how do you administer it. Some of these instruments do require that people have some specialized background and training and shouldn't just be picked up by your brand new CNA who's never conducted an interview or a standardized measure in their life. There are directions on how to score the instrument. There are the indicators of psychometrics, and the citation is there as well. Also, so long as I was able to access it and had permission, there's a printable copy of the instrument. Sometimes I learned that I didn't have permission to provide the actual instrument, in which case there will be a link that you could access, or you could get in touch with the owner of that instrument to ask for permission. And so you can see that this is pretty print friendly. Somebody else might want to administer it electronically, and it is set up to be potentially a pre-test and a post-test, or a post-test only, getting at how did this intergenerational program support generative achievement. This could be used with your other instrument to see, is the use of particular practices, higher levels of interaction associated with the scores on some of these measures. And that's going to be a workshop for another day. And with that, I'm ready to turn things over to Lois. And Danica, I can stop sharing and let you do it, or I can stay here and keep advancing slides.
I'm happy to share.
Great.
Thanks so much, Shannon. It's very helpful to be so concrete. Your toolkit I've used often, and I think it's very user-friendly, and I hope people will check it out and look at the ideas for assessment tools and the tools that you created. What we're going to do is, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, but we're not going to address them at this moment. I think we're going to move on to Lois, who's going to talk about how an evaluation of a specific program was done, and then we'll open up to questions and sharing. So thank you again, Shannon, as always. You did a great presentation, and hopefully people really understand the value of everything you've done. Lois, we just met Lois, and Lois is a PhD candidate and research associate and graduate teacher at the School of Policy Studies at the University of Bristol. And she was recommended to us by the folks in Scotland at Generations working together. And basically, she's been working a lot on evaluating an intergenerational music project, which she, I think, has done over the past couple of years, and is now working on her PhD, which focuses on intergenerational interaction among non-family members in community settings. So we're delighted to have you here, Lois, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Hi, thanks, Nancy. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. Yeah, it's so wonderful to be here, and I know that there is a wealth of experience and knowledge in this space, in this room. So, I'm here to share one example from the Rebuilding Bridges project, which was an intergenerational music program that happened in the autumn of 2021, so just gone. But I acknowledge that there hopefully we'll have a lot of time for you guys to input on your own experiences of different evaluations and share together. So back to Rebuilding Bridges. So Rebuilding Bridges was an 8-week intergenerational program, and I probably should point out at this point that it wasn't a shared site program. In the UK, as many of you might be aware, we're somewhat behind you guys in terms of the availability of shared spaces or co-located spaces, apart from notable exceptions, and it is wonderful to have Judith here from Apple and Honey Nightingale. So this was a visitation program, but it was conducted at one of the sites that was the first co-located childminder and care home space in the UK. So there was the background of co-location was there, but because of the pandemic, that had stopped. So with this program, children and childminders came to visit the care home residents over 8 weeks for a 1-hour music and creative art session. Because of the impact of the pandemic, this was to reignite those connections, because we've seen a lot of digital and distance programs. And so this was the first step in trying to get back to in-person projects. And this is why I sort of call it a socially distanced program, because the children, childminders, researchers, and musicians and artists stayed outside
and the residents and care staff stayed inside, often with patio doors from the care home lounge to the gardens open. On one occasion, as you can see in the top left-hand corner here, the residents were able to join us in the garden, but as you all are aware, that UK weather doesn't always permit that. So most of the time it was that set up as I mentioned. So as part of this, I'd love to tell you more about the program, but I'm just going to focus in on the evaluation. So if we could stop to the next slide, that would be great. So there were two approaches to evaluation taken. First was the kind of formal evaluation. So it was a mixed method evaluation in one of the care homes, that formerly co-located space that I mentioned, over 4 time points during those 8 weeks that they came together. We used 2 observational tools, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a moment, that looked at well-being and involvement. And we complemented those quantitative measures with qualitative interviews to gain an insight into the experiences of residents, childminders and children, and the care home staff. So I'll speak about that in a second. Then the second approach to the evaluation was conducted over 3 care homes. So I visited 16 sessions, observed them, videoed them, photographed aspects of them, and I also recorded post-session meetings between the practitioners, so the musicians, the artists that were involved, and the care home staff, to see what they had learned about each of the sessions, what went well, what they had observed. And I also then did post-program interviews. So once the 8 weeks had finished, we did more in-depth interviews. And all of those were collated into stories, into what I call intergenerational stories, that followed an approach to assessment in early years education called learning stories. And this was to kind of capture the kind of, I put here, the messy and wonderfully productive complexities of this program. So looking at sort of expansive views of education and how we can engage in that. Fantastic. Okay, so the first approach to evaluation used these 2 tools. Now, they're not necessarily toolkits within mentioned within the intergenerational evaluation toolkit, but we chose to use the arts observation scale and the Leuven scale, which I'll talk about in a second, for consistency, because this was a sort of a second phase of a project that was called Making Bridges with Music, which happened in 2016-17. And so we wanted to see if the results were kind of comparable. So that we chose the arts observation scale to measure well-being of the residents, and we looked at mood scores. So we looked at how their mood changed at the beginning of the session, towards the end of the session. We collected demographic data and also an overall rating of the program and how it has impacted on the residents' well-being. And then we also used the Leuven scale, which is an assessment for early years children in terms of their involvement and well-being. Again, rating them on a 5-point scale, observing them over the course of the session, and then coming up for a score based on either extremely low well-being and involvement to extremely high well-being and involvement. And there were collecting qualitative data, so those interviews that I mentioned helped to make sure that those results, those scores that we were given were kind of reliable and valid by getting the insight of the practitioners that had more experience and knowledge of the children and older adults' behaviours. So if we move on to the second slide. So also as part of the evaluation I mentioned, we did this storying approach. So traditionally, evaluations have focused on outcomes, and this is really important for an evidence-based assessment of your program, definitely. But what Shannon has talked lots about in her writings, and is about the process, and in the toolkit as well, is about the processes of these intergenerational programs can contribute to our outcomes. So we need to be evaluating those as well. So this approach, this narrative approach, was about capturing the nature of the interactions within the Rebuilding Bridges project. So through discussions with Lorraine George, who's here today, thanks Lorraine for coming, who was the program organizer, we decided that we wanted to try and capture the essence of the interactions, because one of the main objectives of the program was to reignite friendships and connections following the kind of disconnection that we've experienced during the pandemic. So that very much relates to Shannon's message of, does your evaluation fit with your outcome, fit with your program goals, sorry. And so we wanted to tell stories of the interactions. And so from all the observations and interviews and post-session focus groups that we've done, I collated those into stories that were a narrative reflection of the event that happened, but that combined other people's perspectives. So they were multi-voiced, all of the different perspectives of people involved in the program coming together to give a layered, a thick tapestry of the event, and sort of how those intergenerational interactions had occurred. And that's why I've called them intergenerational stories. And as I said, this was inspired by the Learning Stories approach to assessment within early years education. And that's a kind of systematic approach to
Oh dear.
I think you're still, I was trying to figure out if it was me that had
I
disconnected,
thought so too, but I think it's her.
okay. Oh no.
Hmm.
Give a second see if the internet can
I was
catch back
thinking
up.
things are going so perfectly. You never know with technology.
Yeah, I think we just lost her, so I'll keep an eye out for when she rejoins the call.
Well, I was really into this story to process, so I want to hear more. But hopefully, maybe can you email her or text her and see if she can just get back on. I know we had. Oh, you're here?
Oh, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh,
my
good.
internet just dropped out, but I'm back. So I can pick up where I left off. I apologize for the disruption. Are we all right to reshare the slides?
We should try. Yeah, you're still
Okay,
here.
thanks.
That's good.
Thanks, Danica. Okay, yeah, fantastic. Sorry about that. So, yeah, this approach is inspired by the Learning Stories approach. So it was about describing what had happened, discussing that with people involved in the project, and then documenting that. And that was the reason for producing this book. And I've got a little copy there, but it's also available online. And I'll post the links in the chat in a second. So this is a positive approach about thinking about what the interactions achieved, even though not necessarily directly confined to children or to learning. Okay, so why do this? And we're on to the last slide. So yeah, fingers crossed. So the possibilities for evaluating intergenerational work in creative ways is a new opportunity that we combine and can be quite complementary to the other approaches that we've seen today. So the stories are more than just stories, and the sort of multi-generational nature of these stories was, I think, reflecting the ethos of intergenerational work that is creative and is about bringing different people together. So in that way, rather than, it complements that kind of age-specific outcomes focus by looking at the complexities of intergenerational practice and the processes, focusing on the environment, the activities, and different people's perspectives on what was good or not so good about about those. As I said, it's diverse. We've got a range of stakeholders involved. And what opportunities might that bring for connecting to the wider community? So strengthening community ties or ties across different stakeholders by collaboratively storing intergenerational practice. I've put here it's a potential democratic device because these multiple perspectives can help shape success and what that means to your program. Not all great intergenerational work looks the same. Follows best practices definitely, but what that might mean for your practice might look different. And it's adaptable. It's not just about the end product of the evaluation, but it's about the process of the evaluation. What benefits might that bring to your participants as being involved in that evaluative process as well? So your creative approach to evaluation might not look like storying, or maybe it does, but hopefully this is just a little teaser of what could also be done.
Thank you so much, Lois. It's really interesting. I don't know how far along you are on your dissertation, but I really look forward to reading it, or at least maybe a summary of it when it's done, because I think the stored approach is really interesting. And again, what you and Shannon emphasize is the importance of both qualitative and quantitative data, how it's important to look at the process involved, but also the outcomes. So each of you are probably at a different stage, have done different kinds of evaluation, and I hope what Shannon and Lois shared will help you take you from where you are to the next stage. And so I think that what would be helpful now is to write in the chat some questions, and we can, let's see, we can try to go back. Sherry, I think we can try to look at some of the questions. And then if you want to raise your hand too, we can also do that. But I know there were some questions starting with, let's see. Terry said 1140, I guess, that you wanted to know if some of the metrics are from, citations are from years ago. Are there any of the attitudes, values, beliefs have changed? Do the metrics still apply? Do either of you want to take a look at, have the metrics changed significantly?
Yep, and Nancy, I responded there, and
okay, I see that. Okay.
some of those citations are going to be a little bit older because they're the original study in which the reliability and validity were determined. They are still being used. Terry still raises a good question about whether some of the items are all still salient, if the terminology people would use might be different, but they are pretty contemporary in current research.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, it might be just as well to have people just raise their hand if you want to put the raising hand. I'm trying to look back, and Sherry, if you can look too to see some of the questions going back. But are there any questions right now about anything that either Shannon or Lois did, or questions you have for the group? Because one of the values of this kind of network is to throw out a question, throw out a challenge, ask for clarity, and to share with each other your experiences. So any thoughts?
Jennifer had a question. There might be somebody in the group who she should connect with. You want to share that, Jennifer?
Yeah, so I'm based in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and currently we don't really have any intergenerational programming geared towards LGBT older adults and LGBTQ youth. So I was wondering if anybody in their area has developed or implemented that type of programming, and what steps you took or any advice you would have. Colorado Springs is a little bit conservative, but I know we have a large population and a lot of our focus is on LGBTQ youth, but I find the beneficial connection between the two generations would be beneficial for both, because I know we have older LGBT living in long-term care facilities and experiencing a lot of isolation. So that's kind of where I am hoping to develop an intergenerational program. So if anybody has anything going.
Jennifer, I'd like to put you in touch with some people at Sage Detroit. So Sage Detroit is working on an intergenerational time bank. And so ultimately, they just did a planning grant. They haven't done any heavy duty evaluation yet. They're just really looking at how to, they're in the planning grant stage. But assuming they get a grant, I'm sure they will build an evaluation. And so it would be great to have you all connect. Terry?
Hi, this is Terry. Jennifer, I don't know if you know of SAGE in New York City. They've started some intergenerational programming. I don't know the specifics of it, but I'm sure if you reach out to them, they would have good information to share. And if you have trouble finding the right person, I can try to help out with that.
That would be awesome, because I've gone on SAGE's website and I've gone through the training and I've tried to connect, and I've just been hitting kind of like a little bit of a wall. So I figure with all of the groups that we were all in, so maybe not, why not ask? So yes, any information that anybody has, I will happily take.
Yeah, and I think some of the tools that Shannon has identified, obviously are adaptable for most populations, but I know that there are some issues not only about separate tools, but the kinds of interaction that occur across generations in the LGBTQ community may be different, and that would be interesting to explore, maybe through the storied approach. It may be that you just gather data versus trying to find an instrument that assesses impact. So, other questions for Shannon or Lois, or questions for each other?
Nancy Laurie had her hand up. So
any hands? Where are the hands? I don't see them.
That's okay. That's why I'm here. I can see hands.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you very much for finding my hand, Sherry. Hi, I'm so excited to hear about the presentations today by the mixed methods and the quantitative scales and outcomes and putting that together with the narrative approach that Lois is researching for her dissertation. And I just, this summer, I have 2 college interns working for me, or with me, I should say, because what we were planning to do, during the pandemic, because our programs, as we all know, we haven't been able to have the in-person, and we've had a lot of kind of fragmented connecting, but we've still gotten these wonderful stories. So I was thinking that would be our next step, would be to figure out how to document those stories, because even though our process hasn't, I don't think would show up on our evaluation as very positive for the people experiencing the actual time they've been together, because it's so fragmented, I felt the stories were so rich that would be something to share. And so Lois, I would love to hear more about the systematic approach that you have been using or coming up with, because that's what my 2 interns are charged with this summer. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about it, and perhaps would you be open to possibly talking more with my group this summer a little bit? Anyway, so that was my question. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Laurie. Yeah. So the learning stories approach is a documented approach in the early years, in early years scholarship. So I've really just been inspired by that. I haven't necessarily kind of copied it outright, but through conversations with Lorraine, whose expertise in early years education, we thought about how we could adapt this approach to an intergenerational space and what that might look like. So Tom Drummond is someone that sort of foregrounds that in the early years space, the learning stories approach, but also Margaret Carr. And so we sort of used that as a template of how to document these stories and what that might look like. But again, it's open to adaptation. This is new, this is creative. And so I'd be definitely willing to have further conversations about where we might take it and what that might look like.
That would be so great. I wish that my interns had started this week, because I would have loved for them. I think I'm going to have them watch the recording.
I was going to say, that's nice.
Yeah, so I'm really happy. So thank you so much for everybody's comments.
Lorraine had a question about, do funders equally value qualitative evidence, or is there an overemphasis on data? Stories seem such a natural way of capturing the impact of intergenerational work. Anyone want to respond to that?
I started on an answer and invite others' input as well. I think there's really room for both. That to just share numbers, when I do that, people still want actual pictures, or they want a description of what does this look like? What is going on when these younger and older people are together? And at the same time, I think your funders are interested in seeing that you have some experience gathering information systematically in a way that can boil things down and be complemented by picture or anecdote. What have others found in applying for that funding or in reporting to their supporters?
Hi, this is Terry. I find that stories really inspire funders, and then if you back it up with some data, that is helpful.
Right.
But the stories are what really often capture what's it's kind of what was said before by Lois, which is it can present the kind of richness of the programs, and then if you can back it up with some qualitative data or quantitative data about impact, that kind of 1-2 punch I think can really help with your grants. When we have a minute, I have another question too.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, and then I was going to tell Nancy that Terry had his hand up because I did see your hand, Terry. Is that we've also found that for sites that are trying to build stronger relationships with local policymakers, that having site visits or actually bringing people in, either if you in a virtual setting, you obviously need to do something more with photographs, but when people can be in spaces to actually see the intergenerational activities in action, the relationships in action are really effective. And we've had some when some of the things that we've done that we've had when we've had senators, representatives from administration come in and they see it and experience it. It's been really impactful. So Terry and then Sandra has questions. So
great. Terry?
Yeah, thank you. So actually Sherry, you kind of moved the conversation the direction I was curious about, which is part of the work that we're doing in New York is to try to increase government support for intergenerational programming and to have it be part of what the part of government in New York that funds youth services and funds older adults, that they both provide money for that. And my question is, has anyone had any experience about the types of quantitative data that is most persuasive in that argument? Because we find that by and large, government contracts are always looking to count. They want their funding. They want to be able to report that their funding is having some kind of impact. And so I'm just curious to know, has anybody been successful at making arguments, and did they use data to do that with government?
Sandra, are you responding, or are you a different question?
No, I had a different question.
Has anyone has had experience with that?
Well, I think that this is where the assertion I made earlier about aligning your goals with the data that you gather is important. I think it's also an interesting opportunity that might be presenting itself as outcome of COVID continues, and that is the high level of interest on social isolation and loneliness. Right. And there are standard measures of that. And so to be able to demonstrate the need, right? So you might be gathering your quantitative data to demonstrate need that suggests you need funding to implement this intergenerational program, or that it's achieving the outcome. I think that the best examples we have are still from Experience Corps. And so they would have described, for example, improvement in the percentage of children who were reading at grade level. So that's using standardized classroom assessments that were already being used in the class. The last thing I saw from them, they had some data on socio-emotional learning. So it's a big reach for a lot of us, Terry, and but you're right, it is what a lot of agencies want to see.
Shannon, this reminds me of a conversation that we had years ago about the need to sort of we have all these sort of boutique evaluations that are looking at very small studies and impact on small programs, and sort of the need for a much larger or even collaborative research effort, that maybe there's something that we can think about as a group looking into, that we are sort of trying to measure some of the same things using some of the same tools, and maybe being able to get some data that might be more impressive to government officials.
Okay, well, I would move on to.
Can I just add something there?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, we did probably it's one of the key things is the cost of a program, I think, for funders, especially government. And we did a little tiny study just to look at how much would a little program, like an 8-week program, might cost.
Mm-hmm.
We also did a evaluation, say, in early childcare centres, how much parents might be willing to pay extra.
Oh, interesting.
And it was quite interesting. It was around $8 to $10 Australian, that it was around or probably about $12, $15 Australian that parents were willing to pay extra for an intergenerational program. So those sorts of things I think are really key for costings. Oftentimes we come up against other smoke screens about why they don't want to do a program, but most of the time it's because they think it's too time consuming and too costly.
Right. Okay, with Sandra and then Karen.
Okay,
I am seeing the hands now.
Okay, this is Sandra McGuire. Like I said, I'm working with Age-Friendly Louisville right now, and we don't have any big things like right now with shared sites like you guys are working on. We're hopeful, but one thing that we just did that was really successful, that didn't cost really any money, is we worked through our library system, and they have family reading night programs. And these were focused, the ones that we've done were focused on young kids, preschool through like age 8. And we had an older reader, and then the kids, they were around the older reader. And when it was advertised and the families knew that this was going to be like an intergenerational reading, and all the books that were being shared with the kids were intergenerational books. They had an older person and a younger person. The older person had an active role. And a grandparent showed up, parents showed up. The kids were adorable. They would sit around in a semicircle and the stories would be read to them. The librarians actually were great. They scheduled different activities in between books to keep the kids interested. But we found that the local libraries, and this didn't cost us anything except, just the time and effort. But as far as doing some intergenerational programs and intergenerational readings, that so far for us, they've been one of the groups that have been the most receptive. And most communities have libraries.
Right.
So that was just for us an easy start.
Thanks, Sandra. I think that's absolutely true. And libraries are a wonderful resource in communities. Karen.
Yeah, okay, sorry. One of the things that I would love to see some tools that can be used is in small groups, because I work a lot with people with dementia and have kids involved. And if those groups get too big, they're overwhelming for the person. But when they're small, it gives us new tools for working with intergenerational patients. And if I can tell one tiny story, we had a 1.5-year-old having a tantrum one day, and one of the dementia patients began to mimic him and had a fit, and it stopped the child, and it turned into a funny thing. Well, later this dementia patient, when the child wasn't around, began having a tantrum, and I thought, I wonder if this person would recognize this if I started to act like her. And I did, and she started to laugh because it mirrored her behavior. Well, how do you get that in quantitative anything? And also, I don't know how to work big with these folks. I don't think it works. I think it's too much stimulation. So if we did have tools that could show some of the social emotional, I also have noticed with children that are around folks who are very different from them. Seniors who need equipment to move around or things like that. When new children come in, they're often frightened. When children come in who have grown up with this, they'll stop and watch somebody who is different or, something's unusual, but not with fear, just collecting information. And I think, wow, what a great thing for social emotional development of children in a society at large, actually. So, how do we pick this stuff up? And how do we pass that on to government people is really something that I hope we can figure out, tools that we're all using to collect some of that stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. We do have some really good anecdotal information. I don't know if there's a lot of statistics on it, that kids who go into kindergarten who have been in shared sites have much more understanding and tolerance of people who are different from them. And I think that is an important, aspect of growing up and something we certainly need in our country today. So understanding diversity. Yes. Any other questions? We have about another few minutes, and then Sherry has some announcements to make. Any other either challenges you've experienced or successful strategies you've used or other questions you want to ask Sherry or Lois? I'm looking for little yellow hands.
Nancy Jenny has her hand up.
See, where is Jenny? See, oh, okay, I'm going to call on Jenny, but I don't see her.
Trust me, she does.
I trust you. That's why we're co-facilitators. You can find things that I can't. Jenny.
Yeah, so I have a quick question. We are in a retirement community with a preschool setting. We've been here 26 years. Our residents have always been able just to come in and interact with the kids and not had to meet any state requirements other than fingerprinting. And so now we're struggling with, they're wanting the residents to do medical statements saying that they're physically fit to work with kids, along with the background checks and a few other requirements. So what I'm starting to gather is information on like what other states are required to do. So I was wondering if I could put my email in the chat, and maybe if there's somebody that could give me that information, they could send it to me.
Absolutely. This is a really critical issue. And are you putting in the chat now? If anyone
Yes, I will. I
could help Jenny.
I think it'll really, really hinder our participants, our grandfriends. And I hate to see that happen, especially when we haven't been able to do COVID interactions for almost 3 years. So I just really we're trying to get back to that, but I see this as a big hurdle that we have in front of us.
Absolutely. So please contact Jenny, or if anyone has anything you want to say right now.
Yeah, I was going to say share it now, or even send it to us, because we'd very much, and I can share it with Jenny, but we'll be talking, because this is information requests that we get often with creative solutions that people have had to do. As we were mentioning, Nancy and I were talking earlier about and I think shared at some of our events, different addresses and sort of all these kind of almost, hoops that people jump through to try to make intergenerational interactions actually happen and people to be able to participate.
I do see Sandra with a yellow hand up.
I think it was still up from before.
Unless you have another comment. Supposed to go down. I'm sorry, we're supposed to go down.
Okay, see, and I was so happy that I actually saw that little yellow hand. I just wanted to mention one other thing. When we were talking about different forms of evaluation, I don't know how many of you have logic models in place, but many funders require them. But even if they don't, for me, it's very helpful to really think very clearly about what outcomes you want in the short term, intermediate term, and long term, what activities will get you there, and how you evaluate it. And there are a number of funders who use that as the basis for their evaluation requirements. And so it's worth looking back at what you're doing and saying, am I systematically looking at what I'm doing and where I want to go? And Matt always talks, you always talk about aligning, the activities and the goals and the evaluation and the space. And it's really important that there is an alignment. And I find that a logic model can sometimes provide that initial kind of structure. So anybody else before I turn it over to Sherry?
I was gonna say there was Terry had made a good comment about instead of us conforming to what our funders or policymakers are requiring to sort of try to change the narrative. And I think that also ties in with what Jenny's experiencing. I think there's this idea that regulations or practices are set up that may not apply to any program, but specifically to intergenerational programs, because we're bringing two different sort of funding streams, two different populations together, and that it is often work that I think we need to collectively do to kind of change that narrative, that this is what we want to evaluate. This is the small interactions are just as impactful as serving hundreds of people, that there's sort of like that, changing one person's life is important, so I think there's a lot around that we can collectively lead to. And I think that's just a really thoughtful point, Terry, that she shared in chat. Wanted to elevate.
Okay, well, thanks again to a little round of applause for Lois and for Shannon. We appreciate all the concrete and very helpful advice you gave today. And hopefully many of you will take some of these words and turn them into some very innovative evaluation strategies. Okay, Sherry, you want to go with some announcements?
Yeah, we have a couple. What we've started to include in these meetings is time for announcements or any information that we want to get out to folks. So I wanted to, I'm going to put in the chat a couple of announcements that we have from Generations United, but I did want to just, at the last meeting, we had mentioned that we are doing a survey on diverse intergenerational programs. That survey is live now, and we'd love to make sure that programs that are happening and people as well as if you're interested in doing programs, we're collecting that information as well. I'll put the link, or if Danica gets to it before me, we'll put the link in the survey and take a couple minutes to complete that. And then I know that Shannon had an announcement that she wanted to make, and then again, put announcements in chat, raise your hand if there's anything that you just want to share with the whole group.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I have hot off of the presses an announcement about community of practice, which is not so different from the group of people that we have here. It is sponsored by Administration for Community Living and US Aging. There's an information session on this community of practice coming up, and it is application specific. Something that will be a little bit different from this group is it's not focused on shared spaces. And we do ask that the people who are accepted in commit to attending 4 monthly sessions, 90 minutes. These are for groups that are doing intergenerational programming or exploring. We hope to include people from across the country who are working with youth, older adults, maybe at libraries, Sandra. And I appreciate your sharing the word and checking out that link that I pasted into the text box. It's for Commit to Connect. And so I mentioned earlier, it is focused on promoting social connection and responding to the issues of isolation and loneliness that we're hearing so much about in the news these days. Thanks.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right. Any other announcements or comments? Okay. I'm going to give a second, because I know sometimes if people are typing, keep using the chat if you want to. As I mentioned, and as you know, this is recorded. We'll send out copies of the PowerPoints, the recording to everyone who registered for the event, and links, the links that were shared in chat as well. And with that, we are going to give you all 5 minutes back today of your day and end a little early. I want to thank Nancy for leading us through the group today, Lois and Shannon for their presentations, for you all for your participation and questions. We'll be sending out some information about our next meeting, which will be either later this summer or September, and look forward. Hope you all have a wonderful summer and look forward to talking with you soon. Again, if you have information about any sort of licensing requirements, please feel to share those with us, or if you know someone who we could talk to in your states about that. We really do want to collect and try to help folks navigate those challenges. Great. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
To everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I guess it's just me hanging out.
That's fine. I always hang out till the end too. I should probably stop the recording. That's usually
Yeah, and Renee